Welcome to the third episode of the Python with AI series, where we'll go over how to get better responses from Windsurf by making use. So, a lot of the time, you can actually visualize a problem in your head, and that leads to a common misconception where if you just give it basic instructions on what you want to do, then it can just read your mind perfectly and it can print out exactly what you want. However, giving it vague instructions like that can also lead to vague results or unexpected results. This is especially visible in a programming context because if you don't give it enough information about what you want to create, it could create something that you don't know what exactly it does, or it uses techniques that you don't know, or libraries that you didn't know about. Additionally, results from vague prompts can actually sometimes be broken and have bugs inside of them, which you might not notice because you might not be able to understand all the code the AI's generated. So when creating a good prompt, we can incorporate four things into the prompt. Firstly, the purpose of the AI or the role of the AI in this specific situation, and then the scenario, what's being built using what libraries, and then the expected output, which is what the code should do, and constraints, which is what the AI should avoid doing. So let's look at why these four components are crucial by actually trying to type in a vague prompt and submit it to Windsurf. So if we were to just say, create a factorial function and then send, then you can see it creates this function here, and you can see it defines a factorial function, and you might notice that it's calling itself. And this is actually a concept known as recursion. You can research more about it to learn more, but we didn't really go over it here in the previous Python basics videos. So now let's look at a different prompt here that's more detailed. So here we can clearly see the four parts of a good prompt. You can first see the defined role here, a Python teacher. That's the role Windsurf is playing here. And then the scenario is writing a simple factorial function that takes a single number as input. And the task or the desired output is the number multiplied by all the numbers that come before it. And then the constraints are that we cannot use recursion or call the function inside the function like before, and we have to use a for or while loop. And comments also have to be present so that we can learn and study the logic behind the function itself. So if we click send now, then we can copy and paste the code here. And now you can see a logic behind a factorial function more clearly. You can see there's a result, and then iterate, and then you iterate from 2 to the number that you're given. Plus 1 is just to make sure that n is included in this case. And then multiply that result by the number inside the range that we're iterating through here. And then finally, once this for loop is done, the result variable will represent the number times all the natural numbers that come before it, so I can just return the result. So in this example, we can see how creating a good prompt can make the code easier for us to understand, make it align better with our skill level, and be more relevant to us as programmers. And so this might not make too big of a difference with just a simple factorial function that we're coding here, but for something bigger like a big app, if you just tell the AI to create the app, then it might use some libraries you've never heard of before, and there could be bugs in the code. Whereas if you give a more specific prompt with those 4 components we discussed earlier, then you can refine what the AI will generate. So in these past few examples, we've generated all of the code at once, which isn't really practical in the real world as we might want to make changes to the code. So in order to do that, we can make use of iterative development, or focusing on one aspect of the project at a time. And so the way we can do that is by giving the AI multiple prompts to work through with one prompt for each step of the process. Okay, so now here's an example of iterative design. So firstly, let's look at these 4 components that make a good prompt from before. Firstly, we give the AI its role, basic Python programmer. Then the scenario, an app to create a lookalike profile card for somebody. And that's also the expected output using characters on a keyboard and prints it out in the console, given some personal information about them. And then the constraints are to only use beginner-friendly syntax and add comments explaining the logic. And then finally, here's where we actually include the iterative piece, the first step of this process. So we're saying for now, only ask for the person's name and nationality, and we can request more personal information later. So now if we were to send this, then if we were to copy the code over and then run it, then you can see it asks for the person's name. So I'll just say Johnny, and then he's from Cuba. And then you can see the profile card is printed out. So now I notice 2 problems with this code. Firstly, we're clearing the console beforehand when we don't have to. And also, these box drawing characters right here are misaligned. They don't align with this right edge right here. So that's what I'll tell the AI. So I'll firstly say, I don't need the console to be cleared beforehand, so remove that code at the top. Additionally, please make the right edge of the profile card perfectly aligned. And then if we send it, and then copy it over, then if we type in the person's name, then you can see that it's still misaligned. So because it's still misaligned, we have to manually fix this. So this is a common thing in iterative programming where you might have to actually edit the code yourself if the AI doesn't come up with exactly what you want. So Now let's firstly get rid of all the spaces between the name and nationality and these vertical bars right here. And then let's try to come up with what these numbers should be. So the vertical bar should end up being here. And then we want it to be 32 characters long. And then for the nationality, we want it to be 25 long so that it also meets this edge right here. I'm just looking at the number of characters selected so that I can properly measure it. And so now, if we run the Python code, and then add that second vertical bar right there, now you can see that the code actually works, and it's printing out the correct profile card. So if we wanted to upgrade this afterwards to include the birthday of the person inside the profile card, we could ask the AI to do that as well. It's another iteration, it's another step in this iterative development process. So we can keep giving it prompts for each of the different steps. So finally, for the challenge of this episode, you have to create a detailed descriptive prompt to make a calculator app that takes in two numbers and an operation and then prints out the result with no errors, no matter what numbers the user provides. And you have to generate all of the code using only one prompt. So you have to use those four key components of a good prompt from earlier, as well as detailed language to make sure the AI understands exactly what you want. So when you're programming with AI, it's not just telling the AI what to do, it's directing it so that it actually gives the output that you want and that it's as useful as possible in the coding process. So this concludes episode 3 of the Python with AI series. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and make sure to look out for episode 4.